Hello, Robs. We're back with Cawdor by Robinson Jeffers, a narrative poem of 120 pages long. We have Ellie McCullough in the audience today, and Leroy Rumsey's Ex Libris bookplate. Yes, I'm using this copy. I don't know why. It's no special copy, honestly. 3. The next day's noon, Michael said, her old father believes that food from the sea keeps him alive. The low tides at full moon we always go down. When Farah came, they took sacks for the catch and brown iron blades to pry the shells from the rock. They went to the waist of the ebb under the cliff, stone wilderness furred with disheveled weed, but under each round black-shouldered stone universes of color and life, scarlet and green sea lichens, violet and rose anemones, wave purple urchins, red starfish, tentacle-rayed pomegranate color sun discs, shelled worms tuft-headed with astonishing flower spray, pools of live crystal, quick eels plunged in the crevices. The three intrusive atoms of humanity went prying, and thrusting, the sacks fattened with shell-vaulted meat. Then Farah said, "Go out on the reef, Michael, and when you've filled the sack with mussels, call Hood to fetch it. Why should I go? Let him. Go, Michael. I need Hood to turn over the stones." When Michael was gone and walked beyond hearing on the low reef, dim little remote figure between the blind flat ocean and burning sky, Farah stood up and said suddenly, "Judge me, will you? Kindness is like the slime on my hands. I want judgment." We came out of the mountain fire beggared and blinded, nothing but a few singled rags and a lame horse that has since died. Now you despise me because I gave myself to your father. Do then. I too hate myself now. We've learned he likes dark meat, that roses, a rose wreath of black flesh for his bride was not in the bargain. It leaves a taste. Hood steadied himself against the wind of her eyes, and quietly, "Be quiet, you are telling me things that don't concern me, true or not. I am not one of the people that live in this canyon. You can be cold, I knew that. That's Cawdor. The others have kindly mother in them, wax from the dead woman. But when I saw your face, I knew it was the pure rock. I loved him for that, for I did love him. He is cold and strong. So when you judge me, write in the book that she sold herself for someone to take care of her blind father, but not without love. You had better go out on the reef and help Michael." He went, and kneeling beside his sister to scrape the stiff brown bearded lives from the seafor's face of the rock over the swinging streaks of foam on the water. "Michael," he said, "I wish you could get free of this place. We must think what we can do. God knows I wouldn't want you like the girls in town, pecking against a shop window. What did she want to tell you? Nothing at all. Only to say she loves the old man. Michael, keep your mind clean. Be like a boy. Don't love. Women's minds are not clean. Their mouths declare it. The shape of their mouths. They want to belong to someone. But what do I know? They are all alike to me as muscles." The sack was filled. Reluctance to return had kept him hewing at the thick bed of mussels, letting them slide on the rock and drop in the water. When he looked up, Farah had come. "Why do you waste them?" she said. "You're right. Waste is the purpose and value of. Look, I've something to waste." She extended her hand toward him, palm downward. He saw bright blood trickle from the tips of the brown fingers and spot the rock. "You're hurt." "Oh, nothing. I turned to stone. A barnacle cut me. You were so long coming, I thought I could do without you." "Well, have you judged me, with Michael to help?" "Let me see the cut," he said angrily. She turned the gashed palm cup shape upward, on purpose to let a small red pool gather. She heard his teeth grating. That pleased her. He said, "I can't see." Then she flung it on the ocean. "But you're a hunter. You must have seen many a wild creature drain, and not pale the shade." He saw the white, everted lips of the cut and suffered a pain like a stab in a peculiar place. They walked and were silent on the low reef. Hood carried the sea lymph streaming sack on his shoulder. Every third step, a cold and startling shadow was flung across them. The sun was on the horizon, and the tide turning the surf mounted, each wave at its height, covered the sun. A river of gulls flowed away northward, long wings like scythes against the face of the wave, the heavy red light, the cold pulses of shadow, the croaking voice of a heron fell from high rose and amber. There were 3 sacks to bring up the cliff. Hood sent his sister to fetch a horse to the cliff head to carry them down, but Michael, without an answer, went home by herself, along the thread of gray fog that ran up the great darkening gorge, like the clue of a labyrinth. Hood, climbing, saw on the cliff head, unreal to eyes upward and sidelong, his head cramped by the load, like a lit pillar, Farah alone waiting for him, flushed with the west in her face. The purple hills at her knees, and the full moon at her thigh under her wounded hand new risen. He slid the sack on the grass and went down. His knees wavered under the second on the jags of rock. Under the third he stumbled and fell on the cliff head. They were not too heavy, but he was tired. Then Farah lay down beside him. He laughed and stood up. "Where's Michael? I sent her to fetch a horse." And Farah, shivering, "I waited for you," but Michael went on. "My father says that life began in the ocean and crept like us, dripping sea slime up the high cliff. He used to be a schoolmaster, but mother left him. She was much younger than he. Then he began to break himself on bad liquor. Our little farm was the last refuge, but he was no farmer. We had utterly failed and fallen on hollow misery before the fire came. That sort of thing builds a wall against recklessness. Nothing's worth the risk. Now I'll be mean and cautious all the rest of my life, grow mean and wrinkled, sucking the greasy penny of security. For it's known beforehand whatever I attempt bravely would fail. That's in the blood. But see," she looked from the ocean sun down to the violet hills and the great moon. "Because I choose to be safe, all this grows hateful. What shall I do?" He said scornfully, "Like others, take what you dare and let the rest go." "That is no limit, I dare," she answered. He looked aside at the dark presence of the ocean moving its foam secretly below the red west and thought, "Well, what does she want?" "Nothing," she said as if she had heard him. "But I wish to God I were the hunter." She went up to the house and there for days was silent as a sheathed knife, attending her sick father and ruling the housework with bitter eyes. At night she endured Cawdor, if he pleased, as this earth endures man. A morning when no one was in the house except her father in his room, she stole to Hood's room on the north to fall on the open bed and nuzzle the dented pillow with a fire face. But then, sweating with shame, rose and fetched water for some menial service about her father's body. He had caught cold and was helplessly bedfast again. Meanwhile, Hood Cawdor, with hunting deer at waterheads before dawn, evening rides with Michael, lucky shots at coyotes, in vain lying wait and spying of creekside bad pad prints for the great mountain lion that killed the calf, contentedly used 6 days of his quick 7 and would have gone the 8th morning, but the 6th night the farm dogs yelled furious news of disaster, so that Hood snatched up half his clothes and ran out barefoot. George came behind him. They saw nothing. The dogs were silent. 2 of them came at call under the late moonrise canceled with cloud, but would not quest nor lead. Then the young men returned to bed. In the white of dawn they found the dog that had not come in the night, the square-jawed fighter and best of the dogs, against the door, so opened with one stroke of an armed paw that the purple entrails had come out, and lay on the stone step, speckled with redwood needles. That postponed Hood's departure. He was a hunter and took the challenge. He found the fighting spot, scratched earth and the dog's blood, but never the slayer. That's all for this section. Goodbye, bruv.